The Static Man of Channel 37, the year was 1994. Grunge was king, dial-up was the gateway to the internet, and for a group of late-night TV enthusiasts in the suburbs of Chicago, the Holy Grail was catching a glimpse of something truly strange. Not alien abductions or Bigfoot sightings, but something more subtle, more unnerving. The Static Man of Channel 37, our story centers around four friends. Ethan, the leader, a conspiracy theorist at heart, with a deep fascination for the unexplained. Ethan was the one who first discovered the legend. Maya, a skeptical but curious artist, drawn to the aesthetics of the bizarre. Maya was the documentarian always armed with a camera. David, the tech whiz, capable of rigging up antennas to pull in signals from halfway across the state. David was the equipment guy. Sarah, the pragmatic one, the voice of reason, but secretly thrilled by the group's late-night adventures. Sarah was the driver, the responsible one, mostly. It all started with a post on a local bulletin board, a relic of the pre-web days, about a mysterious broadcast on UHF Channel 37. The poster claimed that late at night, after the regular programming ended, a strange figure would appear amidst the static. A tall, slender man, always facing away from the camera, surrounded by an almost palpable aura of dread. Ethan, of course, was immediately hooked. It's got to be some kind of experimental broadcast, right? Maybe a secret government program? He'd speculate, pacing around his cluttered basement. Maya, ever the artist, was more interested in the visual aspect. Imagine the aesthetic, this spectral figure, emerging from the noise. It's beautiful in a disturbing way. David, predictably, was already tinkering with antennas, trying to boost the signal. Sarah just rolled her eyes, but secretly enjoyed the thrill of the hunt. The first few nights were fruitless. They'd huddle in Ethan's basement, bathed in the flickering light of the ancient TV, tuning and retuning Channel 37. All they got was static, a crackling, snowy wasteland of nothingness. Doubt began to creep in. Maybe it's just a hoax, Sarah said, stifling a yawn. Someone trying to mess with people. Nah, Ethan insisted, his eyes glued to the screen. I can feel it. It's out there. We just have to find it. Then, one night, it happened. It was around 3 a.m. The static on Channel 37 had a different quality, a deeper, more resonant hum. David had managed to rig up an antenna using parts scavenged from an old CB radio, and the signal was surprisingly clear. Suddenly, amidst the snow and crackle, a figure began to coalesce. It was as the bulletin board poster had described. A tall, slender man, facing away from the camera. He was impossibly still, as if frozen in time. He was cloaked in darkness, but even in the grainy static, they could sense his towering presence. A cold wave washed over Ethan's basement. The air grew heavy, charged with an unsettling energy. Even Sarah, the skeptic, felt a prickle of fear on the back of her neck. Record it. Maya, record it. Ethan hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya, her hands shaking, fumbled with her camcorder, trying to capture the image on tape. The video flickered and distorted, but she managed to record a few precious seconds of the static man. The figure remained on the screen for what felt like an eternity, then slowly dissolved back into the static. The signal faded, leaving only the familiar crackle and hum of Channel 37. The room was silent, save for the whirring of Maya's camcorder. They were all stunned, speechless. They had seen something truly inexplicable. Over the next few weeks, the static man became an obsession. The friends would spend every late night in Ethan's basement, trying to catch another glimpse of the figure. They experimented with different antennas, different filters, different recording techniques. They even started researching the history of Channel 37, trying to find any clues to the figure's identity or origin. They discovered that Channel 37 had a troubled past. It had been a low-budget independent station, known for its bizarre programming and its frequent technical difficulties. The station had gone off the air abruptly in the late 1970s, and the broadcast license had been revoked. No one seemed to know exactly why. Some whispered that the station had been cursed, that it had been built on an ancient burial ground. Others claimed that the owner had been involved in occult practices, that he had summoned something dark and malevolent. Ethan, of course, lapped it all up. He was convinced that the static man was somehow connected to the station's mysterious demise. As they delved deeper into the mystery, strange things began to happen. Ethan started having nightmares about the static man. He would wake up in the middle of the night, his heart pounding, convinced that the figure was standing in his bedroom. Maya's artwork took on a darker tone. She began painting haunting images of the static man, his face always obscured, his presence always looming. David's equipment malfunctioned constantly. Antennas would snap, circuits would fry, and the TV would emit strange, high-pitched noises. Even Sarah, the pragmatic one, couldn't escape the growing unease. She started feeling like she was being watched, like she was being followed. One night, as they were driving home from Ethan's house, Sarah noticed a car following them. It was an old, black sedan, its headlights unusually bright. The car stayed close behind them for several blocks, then suddenly sped up and pulled alongside them. The driver was a man with a pale face and dark, piercing eyes. He stared at Sarah with an unnerving intensity, then pointed a finger at her and mouthed a single word, "Stop!" Sarah slammed on the brakes, and the black sedan sped off into the night. She was shaken to the core. "What was that all about?" David asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I think we're in trouble." The friends decided to take a break from their investigation. They were all spooked and they needed to clear their heads. But the static man wasn't finished with them yet. A few days later, Ethan disappeared. He had left his house early in the morning, telling his parents that he was going to the library. But he never arrived. His parents reported him missing, and the police launched an investigation. The friends were devastated. They knew that Ethan's disappearance was somehow connected to the static man. They decided to resume their investigation, determined to find Ethan and uncover the truth about Channel 37. They started by visiting the site of the old TV station. It was located in a remote, abandoned industrial park on the outskirts of the city. The building was a crumbling, dilapidated mess, overgrown with weeds and graffiti. They broke into the building and began to explore. The interior was dark and dusty, filled with the remnants of the station's past. They found old cameras, broken equipment, and stacks of dusty videotapes. As they made their way deeper into the building, they began to feel a presence, a palpable sense of dread. The air grew cold, and they could hear whispers in the darkness. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a hidden room. It was a small, windowless space, filled with strange symbols and occult artifacts. In the center of the room, they saw a figure lying on the floor. It was Ethan. He was unconscious, his body covered in cuts and bruises. He was surrounded by candles, and the air was thick with the scent of incense. The friends rushed to Ethan's side and tried to wake him up, but he was unresponsive. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. They could hear footsteps approaching, and a low, guttural voice began to chant. They were not alone. A group of figures emerged from the shadows. They were cloaked in black robes, their faces hidden behind masks. They were members of a cult, worshippers of the static man. The cult members seized Sarah and David, binding their hands and feet. Maya managed to escape, fleeing into the darkness. The cult leader, a tall, gaunt man with piercing eyes, approached Ethan. He raised a dagger above his head and began to chant louder. Maya, hiding in the shadows, knew that she had to do something to save her friends. She grabbed a piece of broken equipment and charged at the cult leader, striking him from behind. The cult leader fell to the ground, dropping the dagger. The other cult members turned to face Maya, their eyes filled with rage. A fierce battle ensued. Maya fought with all her might, but she was outnumbered. She was knocked to the ground, and the cult members began to close in on her. Suddenly, Ethan stirred. He opened his eyes and saw Maya lying on the ground, surrounded by the cult members. He remembered everything. The static man, the cult, the ritual. He knew that he had to stop them. With a surge of adrenaline, Ethan jumped to his feet and attacked the cult members. He fought with a ferocity that surprised even himself. He managed to free Sarah and David, and together, they fought off the cult members. They drove them out of the room and locked the door behind them. They were safe, for now. They tended to Ethan's wounds and tried to figure out what to do next. They knew that the cult would be back, and they had to find a way to stop them permanently. They decided to contact the police. They told them everything about the static man, the cult, and the ritual. The police were skeptical, but they agreed to investigate. They raided the old TV station and arrested the cult members. The cult leader was revealed to be a former employee of the TV station, a man named Arthur Reeves. Reeves had become obsessed with the static man, believing that he was a gateway to another dimension. He had formed the cult to try to open that gateway, using Ethan as a sacrifice. The police shut down the cult and confiscated all of their occult artifacts. They declared the case closed. But the friends knew that the static man was still out there. They decided to perform their own ritual, a counter-ritual designed to banish the static man from this world. They gathered in Ethan's basement, the same basement where their obsession had begun. They lit candles, chanted incantations, and focused their energy on the static man. The air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped. They could feel the static man's presence, a cold, malevolent force. They continued the ritual, their voices growing louder and more intense. They poured all of their fear, their anger, and their determination into the ritual. Suddenly, the TV flickered and came to life. The screen filled with static, and the static man appeared. He was more vivid than ever before, his presence more menacing. He stared at them with his empty eyes, his face contorted in a silent scream. The friends did not waver. They continued the ritual, their voices reaching a crescendo. They chanted the words of banishment, driving the static man back into the darkness. The TV screen went black, and the air cleared. The static man was gone. They had defeated him, or so they thought. In the years that followed, the friends tried to put the static man behind them. They went their separate ways, trying to lead normal lives. But they could never truly escape the shadow of Channel 37. Ethan became a paranormal investigator, dedicating his life to exploring the unexplained. He was always searching for the static man, convinced that he would return. Maya continued to paint, her artwork becoming increasingly dark and disturbing. She was haunted by visions of the static man, his image forever etched into her mind. David became a recluse, afraid to leave his house. He was convinced that the static man was watching him, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Sarah tried to forget about the whole thing, but she couldn't. She was always looking over her shoulder, wondering if the static man was lurking in the shadows. One night, years later, Sarah was driving home late from work. She was listening to the radio when she heard a strange noise, a low, resonant hum. She recognized the hum immediately. It was the sound of Channel 37. She turned off the radio and tried to ignore the sound, but it persisted. It grew louder and louder, until it filled her entire car. She looked in her rearview mirror and saw a pair of headlights approaching. It was an old, black sedan, its headlights unusually bright. The car pulled alongside her, and the driver rolled down the window. It was the man with the pale face and dark, piercing eyes. He stared at Sarah with an unnerving intensity, then pointed a finger at her and mouthed a single word, "Welcome." Sarah screamed and slammed on the gas pedal, speeding away into the night. But the black sedan followed her, its headlights closing in. The hum grew louder and louder, and the static man appeared on the road ahead, blocking her path. Sarah knew that she was trapped. She closed her eyes and braced herself for the inevitable. But then, something unexpected happened. A voice boomed from the radio, a familiar voice that she hadn't heard in years. It was Ethan. "Don't be afraid, Sarah," he said. "I'm here to help you." Ethan's voice guided Sarah through a series of twists and turns, leading her away from the black sedan and the static man. She followed his instructions blindly, trusting that he knew what he was doing. Finally, she reached a safe place, a secluded clearing in the woods. She stopped the car and got out, her legs shaking. Ethan appeared beside her, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "I've been waiting for you, Sarah," he said. "It's time to finish this." Together, Sarah and Ethan confronted the static man one last time. They used their combined knowledge and their unwavering determination to banish him from this world forever. The static man screamed and dissolved into nothingness, leaving only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Sarah and Ethan were exhausted, but they were finally free. They had faced their fears and emerged victorious. The static man of Channel 37 was gone, but his legend would live on, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of the ordinary, and a testament that the human spirit can be stronger.